Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Any volunteers for a prayer?
I'll say the prayer.
I can say it.
Okay.
All right. Holy Father, we're thankful for this day and this time to meet together as a group and discuss the case studies we've uh, researched and studied, and ask that Thou may bless us with the remembrance of the things we've learned and with inspiration to learn new things and especially learn from each other. And we thank Thee for these things and say this in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Any spiritual thoughts?
Yeah, not that I can think of.
We don't have to share if we don't need to, if we don't have it, so not a big deal. So let's kind of dive in real quick with this case study. So, to kind of a background of what's going on, if you guys didn't read it, but Jim Sharpe, pretty much is the main owner of this Extrusion Technology Incorporated. But to get to that point, he started out as a student at Harvard Business College, but he didn't first get into Harvard Business College at the beginning. He got denied, and then he had to get some more work experience, and finally was able to get into the Harvard Business College. But basically, it seems like he just had he jumped around to different job to job kind of thing, especially with his wife, and then his wife went to school, and he was trying to find a job within General Electric that could fit both her and him in the same location. So anyways, you guys kind of know what's going on. So the first question is says, assess this venture from Jim Sharpe's perspective.
Someone's computer breaking? What?
What's that?
Everything okay? I heard some banging.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. I think it's slightly delayed though.
Is it?
Yeah, mine keeps breaking, like cutting out. I can only hear part of what you guys are saying.
Sometimes if you cut the video out, if you block the camera, it'll take up less bandwidth, and sometimes that works.
Okay.
I can hear everything fine. Everything seems to be working fine on my end. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I probably have way too many tabs open.
So I think to answer the question that you were asking about Jim Sharpe's position, if it's what the venture is from his perspective, I think it's completely different than what he was expecting. He had a list of criteria from the beginning, and this kind of didn't fall suit with that. But I kind of feel like that's expected. When you're searching around and opportunities place themselves, it's not always going to be what you first look for. It's what you end up finding because you're looking for something. It meets his expertise that he's good at taking manufacturing businesses and that are sick and making them better, and he wants it to be remote and all the above. I think it kind of falls into what he wanted in a venture, whether he knew about it or not.
Yeah, I kind of think along the lines that his mindset of what he wanted to be done and what actually happened were totally different. There was a lot of valuable lessons that he learned, though. If you read through all those lessons that he learned from it, like he learned valuable things at the cost of other companies versus having to go through the pain and sorrow of having to lose money on his own business if he was in that same boat, learning all this on his own, losing on his own money versus the company's money.
I thought it was interesting too. I did like that he talked about all the different lessons he learned from other companies' expenses. But when he was offered to the company and he wanted $2 million, and he's like, nope, I just don't see it's worth more than 1.7. So he walked away a few days later because he hadn't heard anything, thinking he would. And they made some concessions. He was looking at it wrong, and that there was more than one to get him the $2 million that was comfortable for everybody.
Yep. Yeah, they were able to come to a better agreement on it.
Yeah, I agree. Um, so a little bit more into the discussion on this case is how is Jim Sharpe how has Jim Sharpe purchased this venture? What are the implications of his financial structure?
So he purchased it through a number of ways. I'm trying to pull up what
No,
we
I
have
was looking
here.
for all the
So
different ways to.
yeah, 100,000 of his own savings, 700,000 seller's note, uh, which he owes the person selling the company, 540,000 6-year non-compete, a term loan of 510,000, and a revolving line of credit for 197,000. So a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the problem I would see if I were in his shoes, and I'm not, I don't know how comfortable he is with it, but I certainly wouldn't be very happy with the idea of having so many different avenues of money coming from different obligations and having different rules you had to follow by and keeping on top of all of that. He's got covenants he has to keep in mind, and it's just I wouldn't like that at all. I'd be like, okay, let's borrow from one place or fund it all myself.
yeah, exactly. I don't know. The way that I look at it is I don't know if the financial structure that he has set up is the best structure, to be honest.
Yeah,
It's I get where he's coming from though. Like I get it, but at the same time I think he's putting a lot of risk on his own self and on his company by the way he's got it set up.
Right.
I think he's really gonna I think it's gonna hurt him in the long run, or even possibly in the short term if he's not careful. But I think that's just obviously his kind of own decision to make. But personally, I don't think I would have. Like I said, if you've got the money in cash, it's better to try to do it that way if you can. Um, I don't know. It just almost seems like he's using his business and the financial structure kind of like a credit card. Does that make sense? And
yeah,
like, and that's not how you should do it. Like, I get it to some point. You kind of want to push things off a little bit, but when you're a business as big as you are and the revenues that's come in and stuff, you don't really necessarily need to go that way either. But
yeah.
and I think that's the wrong mindset that he's got going right now. So, um, what should Jim Sharp do on his first day as owner of the Extrusion Technology Incorporated? That's a really good question. That's
That was one of those questions where it's like, well, what are they really asking? Like, are they asking how he should start paying them back? Is he asking how to deal with the union or deal with the employees? Like, my first thoughts were to, if it's financially related, okay, you need to first come out with a plan of lowering your costs so you get more money back, pay off all the crazy debts that you've borrowed from like 10 different places. But if it's not financially, and it's just kind of like, hey, what's your strategy? Strategy probably would be to get all the employees to stop freaking out, and because it's dropped on them and they don't know if their jobs are secure or anything. Just kind of gain their trust, and get everyone on board. Let them know that you're there to help the company actually become very successful.
Right. Kind of tell him what his short-term plan is, that he's not, trying to clean house or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that he really needs to do on his first day, at least this is what I would do if it was me and I was in the same boat as him, is I would look at the financial structure and see where I'm at and see where I can make improvements at. Like you were saying before about he's got to figure out a way to pay off those debts that he owes. Because that's the thing that I would hate to have in the back of my mind, especially the first day as my owner, is I've got to figure out a way to get these paid off. And he kind of put himself in that shoes, but you know what? You are the owner now. You have all power. You can do kind of whatever you want to do within a reasonable, within reason. But if I was the owner, I would say, okay, this is how financially, this is how I'm going to run my business. And based off of that, this is how I want to be able to pay off my debts. And this is in the time frame that I want to do it. I think with that as his first day, kind of like, okay, gearing up, like, okay, this is my financial plan. This is how I want my business ran financially. This is where I want to be in years to come. And this is how I want to get there by paying off these debts. Then I think that is the best way to start your first day off as an owner. It's just have a plan, know what you want to do, how you're going to get there, and make sure that you put everything that you possibly can into play to help you get there quicker than later. So
Right.
that's just what I feel like, that's at least, what I think he should do. But obviously, I'm not Jim. So.
He did find that when looking at the financial data that there were material being purchased all over the place and more than they needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It amazes me that he would do something like that, especially with the business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But other people, obviously people have different ways of wanting to do stuff financially different. That's just, obviously Jim has, he obviously likes to borrow money. It's almost like he likes to be the president of the United States or be the U.S. and borrow money from anywhere and however and get into as much debt as he wants to feel like he can pay it off whenever he wants. But to move on. So it says, what should his action plan be for the next 6 months, the next 12 months? What should his priorities be? You kind of hit on that, but I guess we can kind of go into a little bit more detail.
Right. For the strategy, again, the biggest thing I see is lowering the costs, and that I believe what it shows in the financial data and even in the case study and the wording talks about their inventory and how it's sporadic. It increases, decreases, and usually anyway, they have more inventory than they need. And also focusing on sales didn't get the results as much as they needed. So instead of focusing on growing sales more and having high inventory to meet that, they need a lower cost and steady out the sales so that each sale is more substantial, if that makes sense. There's less cost of goods sold per sale. And so, as far as a timing frame, though, in the next 6 months or however long that is, I don't know how he needs to do that. He needs to first get his employees on board, lower costs, and then he needs to start looking at other avenues of growing once all the costs are as low as possible.
Yeah, I think. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
It had about them also, where was it? Having bad, not reviews, that's not the right word. Slower shipping and stuff. If they get that all cleaned up and can get it, down to a system where it's quick, and they would probably get more orders. Nice, and that way their volume could go up, so they would make more money, as well as going through when.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out there.
Darn it.
It's just every now and again. Do you mind repeating that?
I was looking at the trying to find the part where it said something about when they don't get their shipments out in a very timely manner.
Mm-hmm.
And if they could get that organized and get orders out quicker, they would probably be able to get more orders and get more volume so that they could make money that way.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I think that's something that's going to definitely, it's probably hurting them right now, but it probably is going to hurt them even worse is if they keep doing that. Because what's going to happen is their customers are going to start realizing that they can't rely on them to get things done on a deadline that they're expecting it to be done, which means they know that they can probably go take business elsewhere, which
Yeah.
will drive down your sales, which will eventually lose your, you're going to probably close your doors because your reputation's going to be gone and no one's going to want to do business with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it hurts the cash flows whenever they've got that much inventory in flux. They're waiting on it to come in. They're waiting to send it out, and money being transferred by shipment and customers and so on. All of that kind of gets affected. And so, yeah, I agree. That's definitely lowering costs of inventory, but also shipments is important as well.
Yeah, I think realistically over the next 6 to 12 months, what he needs to have planned out is how he's going to be able to figure out a way to make his timing down to the point where they're getting everything done either before the deadline or right as close to the deadline as they can to maximize profitability. I think that's the biggest thing he needs to do in the next 6 to 12 months, but also he also needs to figure out a way to be able to not only cut down on expenses, but figure out a way to possibly, if he can, the next 6 to 12 months, take as much debt out of his financial structure as possible. But also, I think that's where his priority lies: is get out of debt as quickly as he can, but also to drive down, make sure increase productivity, make sure it's not just you're being, you're not just filling orders, but and not having all this inventory, but also that you're actually moving the inventory in and moving it out as quickly as possible. Make it as efficient and quickly as you possibly can to make it as profitable as possible.
Right.
That's all it's going to do. Is it's just going to make your business go better. People are going to love your business. They're going to want to do business with you. They're going to tell other people about your business and how good you are, and that will bring in more possible customers and sales and even more revenue eventually. So that's where I stand on that. Did Jim make the right acquisition?
I think yes. As far as my calculations, anyways. Um, and so I don't know what you guys were able to see on there, but I believe it was he's paying $2 million for this company, and then within 6 years, the projections show that they'll make essentially 4 million. And so if that continues down that path, he'll definitely be lucrative and be able to get rid of his debts. And it shows, I believe, his equity goes up to back up to 100% compared to his debt.
No, I think he did. Oh, scary.
Oh, you cut out. What'd you say?
What's that?
He made the right decision, even though it's really scary right now.
Yeah, that's a lot of
It'll be
money.
really good in a couple of years.
I think I think he did make the right acquisition. I really do, but I just think if he can use those action plans and get his business into a place where he's like, okay, this is what I want to do, this is how I want to do it, and get it structurally ready to go, and have an action plan and make sure that he sticks with the action plan and gets the best results and gets everything up and smooth sailing. It will be a huge benefit for him, not only for him but for the company and for the health of the company for the long term. So as long as he has a plan, he'll be fine. Um, it's one of those things though, you just never really know if it's a right acquisition until you get further along. But you have the ability, you have the opportunity as the owner to do everything you want to do to make it work for you and make it be successful. That's the nice thing that Jim has right now is he is the owner, so he can do it how he wants. Now, does that mean he's going to do it the right way? I don't know, because he's obviously in. He's got a lot of debts that he owes, so I don't know where his mind is. Obviously he likes to borrow a lot of money, but that's the nice thing about being the owner, though, is you can kind of make your own decision on how you want to do things and how you want things ran to make it successful. So at this point, I think it's the right acquisition, but very well it could not be the right acquisition depending on how he handles it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gotta stay smart.
Yeah. So just to kind of summarize, I guess then our decision or our conclusion, I guess, is that I feel like Jim did make the right acquisition, but he does have a few things that need to be kind of cleaned up and fine tuned and um, make up some action plans and write up some action plans to make sure that he gets to those corrections and um, so his company will be smooth sailing. So,
Yep. Yeah,
well,
he
go ahead.
made a good decision. It had a lot of risks, but it looks like it could have a lot of return if he, controls shipments and inventories and so on. Then he should have good projections.
Right. Okay.